everyone. This is Pat Foley with recruitingforum.com. We are continuing our interview series with people involved in athletics across the country. Of course, athletics across the country are shut down right now, and it's creating a lot of challenges for people who run programs and especially, the kids, of course. So today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Stephen Beseda, who's with Rain Basketball. Rain, he's got operations in California in a number of cities, Las Vegas, and also Austin, Texas. Am I missing any there, Stephen?
Nope, got
All right,
them all.
good. Well, Stephen's background is in physical training, and he's actually got a really deep background on that. And I that's something I want to talk to him a little bit about because that's also really relevant right now when the kids aren't able to play. But Stephen, why don't you tell us a little bit about Rain?
Sure. So, actually, Rain. It's funny. So, I played college basketball. I played basketball through college, and I had a chance to possibly play overseas had I not gotten hurt. Lost my scholarship and got my degree in exercise science. And I actually am from the great state of Washington, a little town called Kingston, which is outside of Seattle. And I moved down to Southern California. And I actually started off as a strength coach. I really kind of had a sour taste in my mouth with basketball after my career ended. It didn't really end the way I was hoping. I grew up more low income, and so basketball was really important to me, to being able to help my family and, of course, help myself financially. So I moved to Southern California, and then I actually just started training athletes. A lot of football, a lot of basketball, that kind of stuff. And through training over the course of time, and I built my own training company, I also started doing private basketball lessons, which was kind of a random happen chance. I was just in the gym shooting by myself one day at an LA Fitness, and some moms came in and asked me if I knew anything about basketball and if I could help their kids. And
It's funny how life can take a turn on something like that.
Most definitely. And so I ended up just starting with a few kids giving private lessons, and those kids went from being the worst kid on the team to their best kid to the best game. And this was just a city rec league, so it wasn't anything crazy. But because of that, I started to get flooded with phone calls and text messages about training kids. So I started, and I finally just, that saw a need for good basketball and just decided to start my own club. So OC Rain Basketball came into being, and I did that for a few years. And I honestly never had an intention of having more than 2 or 3 teams, so I never did. I just turned people down and said, look, I'm sorry, I've got these, these are my teams. But I was training more and more kids, and finally started growing more. And I'm a people person and I'm a people pleaser, so people guilted me into taking more teams. So I finally started hiring some coaches. And then I finally just decided, I'm going to make this an actual thing. And so after 3 or 4 years, I did. And so I really started to push and grow it. And so my OC chapter, without high school season, we usually float between 8 to 14 teams. It depends on the year. With high school, we usually have around 22 to 24 teams. But high school is only 5 months a year. But my high school program, all of the kids in my high school program to date are playing college basketball if they want to. Some of them got bad grades, so they're playing the junior college ranks, which is fine, but still college, and they'll get their grades up and they'll move on. But so really being able to kind of hit that niche was really good. And then from there, one of my buddies owned a basketball club, and he was getting burnt out. And it's, for people to understand, sports, if people are involved in youth sports, it's not very profitable. Typically, they're doing it for free. And I did it for free for, I want to say 6-7 years. I never took any money. I literally, every single penny was just to cover expenses for the club. But I started to make a little bit. I started to charge just a little bit more for my time. I eventually started hosting tournaments, which was able to make some money. But my buddy was getting burnt out. He's a good friend of mine. So I paid him out for his program and then put him as a director. And so then the IE chapter started, and then I started, I have a Las Vegas chapter, I have a LA chapter that's still part of the IE chapter that will split here soon, and then Austin, Texas, and we're growing. And, the biggest focus and really why we've grown so much, a lot of it was just simply word of mouth for such a long time, because I never wanted to really make it what it is now,
Hmm.
because I feel like the bigger you get, the quality can go down and you can really have problems.
Sure.
And my biggest thing has always been quality over quantity.
Mhm.
Bring kids in. It doesn't matter if you're an open level player or you're a wood level player. If you're just learning, our goal is to make you better.
Mhm.
And we have a very strong history of doing that. And, you're always going to have some families that are very, picky. Oh, we wanted this coach. We want to be with this team. We wanted this, and it's
Right.
just like, we're not here to please parents. We're here to make the kids better.
Parents are the toughest part in
99,
sports.
they can be, for sure. We've been
Yeah.
blessed with some really good families, but 99% of our high school, or 99% of our boys have made it to play high school. 100% of our girls are playing high school, and they're not sitting on the bench. They're
That's
impact
awesome.
players.
Great.
In Orange County, I've got kids starting between freshman and varsity at 30 different schools.
Hmm.
Some private, some public, a combination of them. But they go in and they make it. A lot of our kids that their parent, we had kids that came in and couldn't even dribble, and they were starting eighth grade year, and they're a starter their freshman year
Wow.
for their freshman team at high school, and they're leading in points and assists or rebounds.
Awesome.
So we are really good at developing and pushing our players to develop them. So, everything was actually going really well. We were
And then
looking to open up a couple more chapters this summer, and
along comes COVID.
then COVID came. So
Ugh.
for people to understand, like a bigger club like ourselves, they'll think, oh, you guys have all this money, you got all these kids, you got all this stuff. Well, again, you're talking about youth sports. So yes, we have a somewhat financial buffer, but
Right.
it was because of tournaments. So we would host tournaments every month.
Yep.
And because of those tournaments, and people think that when you run a tournament, you're making all kinds of money. That's also not true.
Mm-hmm.
For people, when you're paying the $10 or $15 to watch your kids play every day, you need to understand that that's to make the tournament work. People don't understand how tournaments work. They just think, oh, I paid $15 to get in.
Oh, we're losing you. Can you hear me? Because we're losing
And
you.
there's always, if you want your kids to play barely cover, yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. So for tournaments, it's such a small margin too, unless you have like 150 to 200 teams. Most of our tournaments are between 60 and 80 teams. And so with that being said, after everybody's paid, the courts, insurance, trophies, refs, scorekeepers,
Yeah.
all that stuff, when everything is finally paid, we will walk away with maybe 6,000 to 8,000. And most of that goes back into the club to pay for the kids that can't afford basketball. If I'm lucky, I take $2,000 a month and I work 60 hours a week on the basketball club. So I make most of my money from the privates, because I have a lot of privates because of this.
Yep.
And I have other businesses, which thankfully pay the bills. But that's just a look into. So when you want to complain about paying an entry fee, understand you're paying that entry fee because somebody's working their tail off to provide basketball for you and your kids. And if you don't pay that entry fee, there's no basketball games.
Speaking of no basketball games, what are you seeing now? I mean, I've talked to people in many different sports all over the country, and it's all a little bit different in terms. And I know that California has, like Pennsylvania is very much on the late heavy shutdown, as is New York,
Right.
California, I believe as well. What are you hearing now in terms of when are these kids going to be able to start playing again?
Well, still up in the air. Obviously this has greatly impacted us in our operations. I don't know if we'll be able to scholarship the same amount of kids anymore for a while, which is hard.
Yep.
But the reality is you have to pay for stuff.
Are your courts, are they on schools, or are you using private courts? Like how are you getting
both schools and private facilities? But they're expensive here. We'll pay $75 to $85 an hour per court.
Yeah.
So, what we've done is we've actually started running practices again, but we do them all outdoors now.
Okay.
Because it's hot. We've learned that the heat kills the virus. Everybody has to bring their own basketball, their own water bottle. Everybody's doing drills and stations 6 to 8 feet apart. We just started our junior high boys team last week. I was doing my high school teams beforehand in groups of 3 or 4.
Right.
So I was splitting every team in half and doing an hour and a half with the first group, hour and a half with the second group. I have 3 high school teams, so I'm doing a lot of time right now, which is good for me to be outside and in the sun. But basketball tournaments, Utah and Arizona are now hosting.
Okay.
So my Las
Oh,
Vegas
wow.
chapter is going to Utah. My California chapters will start making our way to Arizona.
When's that
As
happen?
far as next week is Arizona. This past weekend was Utah.
Wow.
So, but everything's been very restricted and it's changed a lot. And now the fees are twice as much because, parents aren't allowed to come in and that kind of stuff. So we're figuring out how to navigate those waters. It's been challenging. For sure.
Where your kids are getting recruited? Is it the tournaments? Are the coaches going to the tournaments, or how are the coaches finding your kids?
Oh, I love that you asked that because this is the fun and challenging part that nobody seems to understand.
Yeah.
Getting your kids recruited is going to be literally one of the hardest things you ever do.
Mm-hmm.
I spent an entire year putting my kids in literally the highest level tournaments, playing at the highest level we could, and we won a lot of them. We went to the NCAA viewing tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
We played in shoe-sponsored tournaments. We didn't lose games.
Right.
Not a single college coach talked to us. Not a single college coach talked to my kids. Not one. So after that first season of doing it, because I didn't want to coach high school for a long time. My high school program's only been going for 4 years now.
Right.
So I finally just was like, if they're not going to call me, then I'm going to start harassing them. So I put together highlight reels of all my kids. I only had, I think, 16 kids my first year.
Right.
I sent off probably a dozen emails per university. If they responded right away, then I started that, getting to know them. Phone calls, text messages. I started driving to actual universities and would go to campus and find the coach's office and walk into their office and say, hey, my name's Steven.
Right.
I've been trying to get a hold of you.
It's
Do you
like,
have 5
a
minutes?
singer trying to get their demo tape in front of a producer.
It most definitely is. And I told all my kids, because I did this for 2 years. And, man, it was exhausting. And you don't get paid for that.
Right.
And it is very time consuming. So finally I started getting some interns to help with stuff. And then I finally started telling all my kids and parents, like, look, you all need to put in work too.
Mm-hmm.
But as we continued to win high level tournaments, as I started making these connections with college coaches
Mm-hmm.
and my kids started getting recruited, now it's a lot easier. So I probably average 8 to 12 calls from head coaches from Division III to Division I per week.
Right.
I have every JC college coach in Orange County I know because they know that my kids.
Because even less so, it was, you were having a hard time getting, noticed at tournaments before. Now there's not even any tournaments. So now that I think the relationship.
Well, it's 100% relationship.
Yeah, it's
100%. It can't, and you're right. It can't be anything else because there's nothing. Tournaments are just now starting,
right.
But even having tournaments start, they can't go.
Yeah.
So you have to take film, and you have to have relationships. So Todd Franklin at Simpson University and I have become friends. Awesome coach. I align with everything he does. He is a program changer like myself. He tried to recruit one of my kids 2 years ago, and that kid ended up going to Colorado, and that was his dream school. So he decided not to play college basketball, but he was offered a scholarship. This year he's offered another one of my kids. It looks like he's going to accept, thank the Lord. He'll probably recruit one of my kids from next year too. So every year he's picking up a kid. I have a great relationship with Rhett Soliday at Vanguard University. He's never picked up any of my kids. He just recruited one of my kids for the first time this year.
And
but I do have relationships.
In basketball, is it junior year when you're seeing the kids commit, or what?
Senior year.
Oh, okay.
Junior year, you better be a 4 or 5 star. I mean, It's so tough. It doesn't happen often. Basketball
is different because, first of all, it's just so everyone plays basketball, right? Like there's
everybody.
So many kids, and soccer is the same way. You've got so many kids in the soccer world and so many kids in the basketball world. Where I'm, where my girls are, it's much nichier. field hockey and lacrosse, and it's different. You do have a lot of commits happening in junior year. In fact, probably the majority are committing in junior, and then there's another wave in the senior year. But it's interesting that with you guys, it's senior year, which puts even more pressure, really, because the kids who
Of
are
course.
seniors, they lost this season here.
Yes. Now, I will say that this is something most people don't know. Probably 70% of junior college. So if you're looking at four-year universities,
Right.
any four-year university, they will typically go after junior college players in general. So I would say probably about 70% of players that are at the Division I, Division IIs, Division IIIs, the NAIAs are junior college players. They played 2 years already to junior college.
Now, does going to a JC first, does that count as part of your NCAA eligibility?
2 years of it.
Okay, got it.
Yep. So because junior colleges are still NCAA associated. So most people don't know that 70% of players come from the JC ranks.
Okay.
So people always want to take a poop on the JCs, and I'm like, dude, you know how many Division I players are at JCs?
Right, that's the path, huh?
I mean, you really got to look at the JC path is probably the best path for most kids.
Mm-hmm.
And kids, there's such a disconnect. I had just this year in what's my senior class now, I've had 4 guys get offers, and they said no to the offers because they weren't in Southern California. Like, who are you guys? You're getting offers from
Right.
NAIA Division I schools and NCAA Division II schools, and you said no because you didn't like where it came from? So they're all going to play junior college because they think that they're going to go from a junior college and play here in Southern California. I don't know that that's going to happen. I don't know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But you had offers, and you turned them down because you didn't like the fact it was in a Southern California school. It's
Right.
insanity.
Yeah, that's interesting. Basketball definitely is its own animal in terms of the process and the path into to these schools, which is, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's definitely different. That's for sure.
Have you been, with your training background, what have you been telling your kids during this downturn, or this downtime rather, about trying to keep themselves in shape? I'm losing you again.
Yeah.
There you go. You're back.
So, can you hear me?
You're back.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah. So with the training, it's challenging because weight training is important, right? However, it's not the end all be all. A lot of the training that we do, kids are getting more sore and more progress from their. So, it's also challenging because there's a lot of things you need to actually see them doing to make sure you can correct stuff.
Right.
So I've actually been training most of my high level guys outside.
Okay.
I had 2 guys get drafted to the NFL this year. Most notably Josh Love with the Rams. He got picked up after the draft as a free agent. He's going to be the backup QB. I've been training him since 7th grade in junior high. But we do a lot of stuff outside and we make it really challenging. A lot of plyometrics, body weight stuff that's very challenging. I've had to, you still want to make sure that they're prepared for whatever they're getting into.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways you can maneuver that. If you're a really good strength coach, you'll be able to. A lot of single leg stuff to really focus on the stability, balance.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you're utilizing those muscles a lot more because your body weight.
Yeah.
There's a lot you can do. It's just doing it the right way, having the appropriate planning around what you do as a sport.
Yeah.
It's not just about how much you can bench. You're not going to bench press you're not going to go onto a basketball court and start doing a bench press and you're going to get points for it.
Right.
So there are different ways you can train. There's the right ways you can train. I know that can be hard to find people that know how to do that, but there's a lot of different options out there. You just have to be smart about it and be dedicated to what you want to accomplish, for sure.
Well, listen, I really appreciate your time, and you definitely brought some insights that I had not known about, and I hope that some people who check this video out have the same experience and learn some things. And I also, it's encouraging to hear that some kids are getting back out there and starting to play again, because that's in many cases the answer is still I have no idea. So it sounds like at least
Yeah.
out there, out in some places out west, it's starting to happen again. And I wish you the best in the coming
Thank you.
year, and I hope you get this operation back up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. And I think that you're right, though. I think just there's a lot of still unknowns for people.
Yeah,
Right now I'll make this fast. Everything's being tested,
yeah,
right? Arizona, Utah. I know that we're going to games, but they're testing it out. They're seeing
yeah.
what works, what's allowed.
All unprecedented.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think that there's going to be a lot of in the sports world just unknowns for the next 6 to 8 months, and it's just going to boil down to trial and error.
yep,
And yeah, just people that want to try and make it work, and then others that maybe are more nervous to try and make it work.
sure.
I think that's the other big thing we have to take in consideration is what do you listen to all day long? Are you listening to the mainstream media that are telling you stay inside, or if you go outside, you're going to get sick and die?
Right.
Or are you just living life and then just making smart, educated decisions?
Yeah,
Right. And I think that if you're making smart, educated decisions, there's a way to do things. That's why we've opened up small group workouts and practices, because we made smart, educated decisions. The coaches all wear gloves. They all stay 8 feet away from the kids. The kids all stay 6 to 8 feet away from each other. Nobody touches each other's water bottles or balls.
yeah,
So there are ways to do things. It just has to be done correctly.
yep. I agree. That sounds like a wise approach to me. All right. Well,
Well,
again,
thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
yeah, I appreciate it. Take care.